My husband finally cut ties with his toxic mom and sister after they demanded we give up our house for my jobless sister-in-law and her family. My in-laws have a very toxic connection with my spouse, and it is beginning to ruin my life. Growing up, my husband was my favorite, the golden child, and my mother-in-law was very close to him. Jacob has informed me that because his father was so busy at work, he and his mother spent a lot of time together. However, I've noticed that his sister, Sarah, is not treated equally by my mother-in-law. Although I am confident that my mother-in-law loves both of her children, I have repeatedly observed that she prioritizes my husband. I'm sure Sarah felt the same way growing up, which is why my husband has always attempted to fill the void by being a kind elder brother to her and always being there for her. But the truth is that Sarah and my mother-in-law would sometimes behave in such a ridiculous manner that it crossed the line. For example, when we initially started dating, Jacob, a recent college graduate, and my in-laws, including Sarah, shared a house. My in-laws had offered my husband a totally own level so that he could have his own privacy and welcome whomever he pleased. This is why he would occasionally invite me to his home to spend the night with him. However, several times in the morning, Sarah would storm into our room while we were asleep without knocking. As you may guess, we were not always properly dressed, but she would act as if everything was normal and begin talking to Jacob about utterly random topics. This was very strange for me because I was uncomfortable with her seeing me in my lingerie. Before anyone points out, I absolutely understand that Jacob was living with his family at the time, so I should have expected this, but is knocking on the door before entering really that much to ask? I suppose siblings can be quite close, but she and I didn't know each other very well when Jacob and I first started dating, so I thought it was really rude. Naturally, I spoke with Jacob about it and informed him that I would not be going over unless he installed a lock on his door. He agreed. But as you can guess, Sarah, who attempted to storm into the room the next morning but was unsuccessful, began ranting at us about why the door was locked. She began jiggling and hammering on the door, begging her brother to let her in. Jacob eventually let her in, and she stormed into the room, asking why he had set the lock in the first place. When she recognized me, she pointed to me and began ranting at him, asking if it was because of this skank. I was astonished by how harsh and insulting she sounded. Jacob told Sarah that he wanted to install the door lock, but Sarah was not convinced. She angrily informed him that they were siblings and should not keep any secrets between them. Jacob told her that he had no secrets, and that he had put the lock so she wouldn't barge in when we were asleep, which was quite disturbing. Sarah violently flipped her head towards me and exclaimed that it was all my fault, saying that I was interfering with her and her brother. This was too much for me, as I am generally non-confrontational, so I excused myself to visit the restroom. I could hear her yelling, with Jacob attempting to calm her. When she eventually left, Jacob came in to comfort me. He apologized for her actions and informed me that he would speak with her again so she could apologize to me as well. When I arrived the following weekend, Sarah apologized and offered me a pitiful excuse, claiming that she needed to speak with Jacob urgently and so believed it would be good for me to come in. Jacob forcefully asked her not to bother us again, and she agreed sheepishly. Although this issue appeared to be remedied, it was not the only strange conduct she demonstrated towards Jacob. If Jacob and I differed on something, even something as trivial as movies, and Sarah was around, she would begin telling him that he should date someone with comparable likes, meaning that we were unsuitable for each other. Jacob would give her a condemning look, but she would simply smirk. Another episode was Sarah asking me awkward questions about my background in an attempt to delve into my life. Jacob and I had been open about our past since the beginning, but I didn't feel comfortable addressing it with his sister. Regardless of my thoughts, she would ask me questions like, "Why did your ex break up with you? Were you not suitable for him?" Can make remarks like, "My brother's previous girlfriend was far more attractive than you." All of these queries and comments arose when she and I were alone. I began to suspect that she was trying to play a game with me, bringing me down. I initially kept my lips shut, but as the situation progressed, I had enough. One day, I responded to her taunting by stating, I liked my ex-boyfriend's family better than Jacob's because he didn't have nosy, overbearing family members. Sarah was taken aback by my reply, which temporarily silenced her. Even though Sarah had a strange relationship with my husband, my mother-in-law was no exception. When I first entered Jacob's life, my mother-in-law ignored me, but once she discovered we were serious, she began acting as if I was attempting to steal her son away. She would purposefully ignore me at dinners and family gatherings, as if I did not exist. Jacob saw this occasionally and tried to talk to her, but she never changed. My mother-in-law once referred to me as stuck-up and spoiled, just because my parents put me to a private school while she was a public school teacher. I also know she tried to talk Jacob out of marrying me, telling him he should look for a better spouse. Fortunately, my spouse did not care about her view and proposed to me nonetheless. My mother-in-law and Sarah were shocked to learn that Jacob had proposed. Both contacted me, telling me that it was a horrible decision and that, because Jacob wouldn't listen to them, I should quit the relationship and return the ring. I found this quite strange and declined, stating that they were crossing a line by asking me to do something like that when I loved Jacob and wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. When they realized they couldn't persuade me, my mother-in-law reluctantly changed her mind, telling me that I should strive to be the best wife for him and care for him in the same manner she did for years. I was rather offended, but I tried not to take her remarks too seriously. Sarah, on the other hand, accused me of being a gold digger and claimed her brother deserved someone with higher status. She even threatened to expose me before our wedding so Jacob would not marry me. Following this conversation, I immediately spoke with Jacob about everything. He was taken aback by how disrespectful they were towards me. He challenged them, but my mother-in-law and Sarah continued to believe that I was unsuitable for him. Jacob told me to disregard them, assuring me that he loved me regardless of their opinions. Despite his reassuring remarks, I felt horrible that his own family would not embrace me. Jacob and I had already chosen to pay for our wedding ourselves, so when my mother-in-law offered to cover half of the cost, we politely declined. Despite Jacob's reassuring remarks, I felt horrible that his own family would not embrace me. Jacob and I had already planned to pay for our own wedding, so when my mother-in-law offered to cover half of the costs, we politely declined, with Jacob explaining how hard we had worked to save money specifically for this occasion. Instead of being happy for us, she became even more angry, and she began telling Jacob how sad she was that he no longer needed her. However, Jacob's father appeared to be quite pleased with us. Unlike his sister and mother, his father was very calm and never had any issues with our connection. Since my mother-in-law continued to complain to Jacob, we made a compromise by telling her that we would love for her to organize the rehearsal dinner for us. She agreed, and we appreciated her generosity. However, when the wedding approached, events took an unexpected turn. The first instance came when Sarah invited herself to join us for supper, telling Jacob how much she missed him. Jacob and I were living on our own following our engagement, so we assumed she genuinely wanted to spend time with her brother. We agreed, and Jacob asked me directly if I was comfortable with having supper with her. I reluctantly consented, not wanting to be nasty to my soon-to-be sister-in-law. While we were enjoying our dinner, Sarah abruptly began discussing how much she despised cheating partners, claiming that cheaters were nothing but useless pieces of trash. We stared at her, curious about where she was headed with this. Then, out of nowhere, she looked me directly in the eyes and asked how it felt to be a useless piece of trash. My brow furrowed in perplexity as Sarah began to rant, accusing me of having an affair with my co-worker Zach. Jacob, also perplexed, asked her what she meant by saying. Sarah proudly hauled out photos of me and one of my co-workers, waving them around and claiming that she had caught me red-handed. I knew I'd never been unfaithful to Jacob, so I was curious as to why she assumed I was having an affair. Looking through the photos, they appeared to be entirely innocent. It's true that Zach and I were close co-workers, but only because we started at the same time and helped each other out when we made mistakes, so our manager wouldn't criticize us. Zach even had a girlfriend, which Jacob knew about. I don't have a lock on my phone, and I've always been open with Jacob about all of my colleagues. Sarah had turned these pleasant moments caught in photographs into something they were not. Evidence of a fictitious affair. In truth, they were far from it. Her false charges irritated me since it was obvious she was attempting to damage my reputation and disrupt my connection with Jacob. Before I could defend myself, Jacob, stunned and plainly upset, moved in to help. He questioned Sarah why she was following me around and photographing me with my co-workers in public places without their permission. When Sarah heard this, she began rationalizing her behavior, claiming she simply wanted to investigate me because I was not of their status, and she was scared I was marrying Jacob to steal his money. Jacob told her unequivocally that her charges were false and that she was creating extra drama out of nothing. He tried to reason with her, telling her to stop spreading lies and attempting to destroy our relationship, but Sarah insisted that Jacob open his eyes to the obvious affair that was going on. I also tried to clarify that we were only co-workers, but Sarah insisted on her charges. As her charges grew more serious, the environment became strained. I had had enough and informed her that I was going to make a police report against her for illegally photographing and stalking me. Her look grew terrified as she inquired whether I was serious. I informed her I had all of the evidence. She had purposely tracked me and took these images without my permission, attempting to slander me with ludicrous lies. Sarah stared at Jacob and then back at me, arguing that she did everything to protect her brother and that it wasn't a big deal. She began imploring Jacob to speak with me, worried that if I filed a complaint it would jeopardize her profession and future. I strongly told her that she could only save herself at this time. Sarah inquired what I wanted. I assured her I wouldn't pursue the complaint if she kept away from my life. Sarah had no other option for escaping the situation at that point. She looked to her brother for support, but Jacob defended me, telling her that she should be grateful I was willing to let it go because what she had done was clearly wrong. Sarah reluctantly agreed to stay away from me, and we have not spoken since that day. Jacob still has a relationship with her, but she has never spoken to me again. The second incident occurred shortly before our wedding, at the rehearsal dinner. My mother-in-law, who had insisted on planning the meal, rebuffed our offer of assistance in any manner. She told us that she would take care of everything. However, when we arrived, it was evident that the preparations were far from what we had anticipated. The rehearsal dinner had plastic tablecloths on picnic tables and chilly Mexican food. My mother-in-law was upset throughout dinner, which marred the festive atmosphere. She drank excessively and began behaving inappropriately with the guests, repeatedly stating how she couldn't wait for the wedding to end and how stressful it had been, despite the fact that she had not contributed monetarily or assisted with the planning. Eventually, my father-in-law became irate and escorted her away. Sarah attempted to excuse her mother's actions, but my father-in-law refused to listen. As you might guess, the entire affair was a fiasco, and I began to worry that both my mother-in-law and Sarah would wreck the wedding the next day. That night, Jacob and I had our first disagreement. I informed him strongly that he needed to uninvite Sarah and his mother because, based on their actions, they would surely try to overshadow us at the wedding. My husband angrily protested, promising me that his father would be present and would not allow them to get away with it. Frustrated, I promised that if he didn't uninvite them, there would be no wedding the following day. Jacob was plainly taken aback by my demand, and even knowing how extreme I sounded, I was concerned about what they might do. I did not want to be embarrassed again in front of my family and friends on our wedding day. Jacob definitely lacked firm boundaries, but I hoped that this ultimatum would make him realize how much his family was interfering with our relationship. Thankfully, Jacob understood and made the proper decision. He called his father early in the morning to inform him that his mother and sister were uninvited. Phil didn't appear startled and promised Jacob that he'd make sure my mother-in-law and Sarah didn't show up there unexpectedly. Shortly after our chat with Phil, my mother-in-law and Sarah began contacting Jacob constantly, apparently trying to persuade him to let them attend the wedding. However, Jacob forcefully told them that he did not feel comfortable having them there because of how they had treated me throughout our relationship. Hearing this, my mother-in-law began accusing me of being a terrible influence and interfering with her relationship with her son. Sarah attempted to argue with him, but Jacob was certain in his decision. I felt horrible that Phil couldn't attend our wedding because of his wife and children. I even felt sorry about issuing the ultimatum. But all of my remorse vanished when I discovered from some of Jacob's cousins that Sarah and my mother-in-law had intended to wear white dresses to our wedding. The cousins informed me that in their family WhatsApp group, which only had female members, Sarah had encouraged the others to wear white as well, stating there was no reason for the bride to be the only one. I was astounded by how low they would go just to hurt me. After knowing this, I was relieved they hadn't been invited. Jacob missed his family, but he could see where I was coming from. Overall, we had a lovely wedding, and no one tried to outdo us. Since that day, my mother-in-law and Sarah have stopped talking to me entirely, which I am absolutely okay with. They only invited Jacob around for dinner or special events, which didn't bother me at all. Phil, on the other hand, was always kind to me, and we stayed in touch over the years. Jacob and I painstakingly saved money and finally purchased a new home this year. It was our first home, and we were overjoyed to own something so meaningful. Jacob's parents and Sarah did come to visit for a modest housewarming celebration, but I went to see my parents and spent time with my family instead. Now, to the major point, my mother-in-law contacted me unexpectedly last month. This was really surprising because Mom and I hadn't spoken since the day I married Jacob. Surprisingly, she casually inquired about my well-being and life circumstances. I was taken aback by her unexpected interest, but I responded pleasantly. Then she questioned how it felt to live in such a spacious house with only Jacob and myself. Her remarks stung since Jacob and I had been trying to conceive for a long time but were unable to do so owing to infertility concerns. Jacob and I had mourned the thought of never having children, but we gradually accepted it. When I first got the news, I informed Jacob that if he wanted to marry someone else and have children, he could divorce me. But Jacob had always stayed by me, assuring me that it was fine to be childless as long as we had each other. Our families were aware of this, so my mother-in-law's comment was very painful. She then told me Sarah was pregnant again. I was astonished because this would be her 6th child. Jacob had told me how her husband was unemployed and did not believe in using contraception, which resulted in these accidental pregnancies. Sarah's boyfriend was the embodiment of laziness, doing nothing around the house to aid her or the kids. I've heard from Jacob that he treats Sarah like a personal maid. He never pays any bills in the house. Sarah works many part-time jobs, while he spends the entire day gaming. Regardless of how much everyone has talked to her, Sarah never breaks up with him. My mother-in-law then went on to add that because Sarah could no longer afford to work during her pregnancy, she thought Jacob and I should give up our apartment because it was too big for a childless couple like us. I was caught aback by her demand and struggled to find words. I inquired whether she was joking, but my mother-in-law responded that she was serious, that Sarah and her husband deserved to live in a larger house. However, because she did not have enough space in her own home to accommodate them, she invited them to come in with us. The weight of her news weighed in the air as I fought to keep my composure in the midst of the emotional storm. I emphasized to her that this was our house, which we were still paying for, and the idea of someone else moving in without our permission was intrusive and ludicrous. However, my mother-in-law said that she had already spoken with Jacob, who had allegedly consented to this. This was strange because Jacob and I were always open with each other, and I knew he would have told me if he had agreed to let his sister and her family stay with us. I firmly told my mother-in-law that because the house belonged to both me and Jacob, he couldn't grant permission without my agreement. No one was allowed to reside here unless both of us agreed. To reach a solution, I told her that I would be pleased to accommodate Sarah and her husband for a few days if they wished, but that they could not stay permanently. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, began yelling, arguing that as a responsible daughter-in-law, I was required to make room for Sarah and her husband. She also assured me that if I complied with her demands, all previous troubles would be forgiven. In rage, I cynically said, "Sure, I'll be pleased to let them take our place. But you see, we're still paying for it, and I'm confident that if Sarah and her husband move in, they will not assist with the mortgage or bills. So how about you take some responsibility and contribute to their living expenses? I'd be grateful if you could just cover the mortgage, and we'll manage the rest. Of course, with only one job, you'll definitely need a second one to cover the home payments. Please let me know when you intend to get that second job." Hearing this, my mother-in-law exploded in wrath, shouting and voicing her dissatisfaction. She said it was crazy of me to want her to pay the mortgage, and I responded that it was equally ridiculous for her to expect us to care for Sarah's family and allow them to move in. This infuriated her even more, and she continued to yell, while I smiled with satisfaction. She eventually disconnected the call when she saw I wouldn't give in to her demands. Soon after, Sarah called and yelled at me for daring to ask her mother to pay our mortgage. She went on to add that she had always known I was a gold digger. I informed her that she was the gold digger, attempting to live with us without contributing. I added that if she wanted to know who the true gold digger was, she could look at her own partner, who did nothing to assist her. This appeared to silence her. I firmly told Sarah that she could argue with me all she wanted, but I would never let her family into our home unless they agreed to help with the mortgage. She accused me of being cruel and putting money before family. The tables had turned and I was relieved at the thought of sticking up for myself and refusing to back down, taking control of my home. However, I feel a little awful thinking about my ex-husband, and I'm here on Reddit wondering if what I've done makes me the villain. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who has expressed their support. To answer the most crucial question that everyone keeps asking, why would my mother-in-law demand such a stupid thing of us? It's because she has always been so entitled. Clearly my husband has tolerated this charade for far too long, and he and I need to sit down and have a serious discussion about it. It's heartbreaking how my mother-in-law can lie about her own kid in order to get her way. My sister-in-law is a pawn in her game, doing whatever her mother-in-law wishes because my mother-in-law has always favored my husband. Sarah simply listens to what her mother says in the hopes of garnering favor as well. In this situation, Sarah stood to benefit because she could rely on us to pay her expenses and care for her children while her useless husband did nothing. I'm waiting for my spouse to return from his business trip so we can discuss. I do not want to discuss this over the phone since it is too important. Update 2. It's been 3 days since I last updated. As I indicated earlier, I was waiting for my husband to return. When he returned, we finally sat down and talked. I told him how his mother had called and demanded that we give up our house to his sister and her family. Jacob was definitely taken aback, so I gave him the whole story. He subsequently said that he had no idea about any of it. Prior to his journey, his mother had only told him that his sister was pregnant. That was all he knew about the situation, and he had no idea his mother would make such unreasonable demands. I informed him forcefully that I expected him to speak with his mother and deal with the matter because I couldn't bear his family anymore. He agreed. Jacob confronted his mother and questioned why she had lied to me about him. When caught red-handed, my mother-in-law attempted to backtrack, claiming that she had not actually lied. She said that she knew Jacob would have no objections to his sister staying with us, so she took matters into her own hands and approached me personally. Jacob stopped her off and questioned why she thought he would be fine with Sarah and her entire family coming in. My mother-in-law explained that because Jacob and Sarah were close, he would naturally want to support her by allowing her family to come in. Hearing this, I closed my eyes in disgust, but remained silent, allowing Jacob to handle his mother. Jacob then firmly told her that he was not going to let Sarah, her unemployed husband, and their 6 children move in with us. He also stated that she had no authority to compel us to take care of them. My mother-in-law started yelling, stating Sarah desperately needed aid at this time. But Jacob informed her it was not our job, and if she wanted to help, she could care for Sarah herself. My mother-in-law then said that Phil didn't want them in their small house, although we lived in a larger house and could easily help out. She even had the audacity to suggest that, since I was childless, assisting Sarah's children would make me feel fulfilled. My eyes widened with surprise, but for the first time, I noticed Jacob's face shift color. He raged at her, stating she had no right to say such rude things about me and couldn't use it to compel me to care for Sarah's children. Jacob went on to say that Phil didn't want anything to do with Sarah since she had turned into a child-birthing machine and that he was over both of them. My mother-in-law tried to backtrack again, but Jacob would not have it. He informed her that he had done his best to keep a positive connection with them, even after they had repeatedly disrespected me, but he couldn't take it any longer. My mother-in-law begged him, but Jacob assured her that this was our home and I was his wife. Anyone that offended me disrespected him as well, and they did not deserve to be in his life. Jacob ended the call with those final words. Since then, he has not spoken with Sarah or his mother. Phil summoned Jacob to speak, and after hearing the entire story, he understood why Jacob had made such a severe move. Phil apologized to me on behalf of his wife, but I informed him that it was not his responsibility. Update 3. It has been an interesting 2 weeks. A lot of people suggested that I install cameras around our house in case my mother-in-law and Sarah wanted to show up and cause a commotion. So I purchased several cameras online and installed them. As luck would have it, they showed up last weekend, banging on my door while I was alone at home. When I saw them through the camera, I quickly called Jacob, who told me he was on his way. I answered the door, and there they were, my mother-in-law and Sarah, both furious. They requested that I let them in, but I refused and told them that if they had anything to say, they could do so from the outside. My mother-in-law began ranting at me, accusing me of being callous, greedy and selfish. I politely informed her that this was our home, and they had no right to enter uninvited. She continued her tirade, unknowing that the cameras were recording every moment. I reminded her of our prior chat, emphasizing that I would not give up our house for Sarah and her family, and that if she had anything else to say, she could wait for Jacob's return. Sarah then began yelling, accusing me of breaking up the family for no reason, being a gold digger and attempting to take her brother away from them. I informed them that everything they said was being recorded and that I would use the footage to obtain a restraining order if necessary. Their eyes widened in surprise as my mother-in-law exclaimed that I wouldn't dare to do that. I smirked and informed her that if they did not leave the property immediately, they would receive a legal notice very soon. This worried them, and Sarah tried to convince me that I was overreacting, saying that it wasn't a big problem. Fortunately, Jacob came at that exact moment. He approached them casually, asking what they were doing. My mother-in-law raced to hug him, but he resisted and forcefully demanded why they had come. Sarah stated that I was attempting to control his life by separating him from them and that they had come to face me. Jacob reiterated that it was his decision to avoid touch, and he did not want anything to do with either of them. My mother-in-law begged for forgiveness, but Jacob merely told them to leave the property or he would call the cops. They were visibly taken aback, apparently not anticipating this reaction from him. Jacob went on to say that if they ever came up at our house again, we would contact the police and have them removed forcibly. They fled, devastated, but Jacob no longer cared. I was relieved that my spouse had finally spoken up for me. Jacob has now spoken with Phil, who was as surprised as we were that my mother-in-law and Sarah had gone behind his back to show up unexpectedly. Phil informed us that we were correct not to let them in and expressed disgust with their behavior. With Jacob being so stern about kicking them out, I doubt they'll dare to return to our property. If they do, I will contact a lawyer right away. I am relieved that my husband has finally learned how toxic his family is, and I hope this is my final update. I'm ready to move on from this circumstance and continue our lives peacefully.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
I'm tired of my sister-in-law and I even plan to not go to my brother's wedding because of her weird behavior. My 27Y brother, 25Y, is marrying Lena, 24Y. She doesn't have a family, so my family tried to make her feel really included. I liked her the few times I saw her until she started to get weird. I live 5 hours away from my family because I worked as Rita's 98F personal nurse, so I lived with her, and I'm studying another degree, so I don't really have too much free time. The first time I met Lena almost 2 years ago, she came up to me saying that everyone in the family always talks about me or asks for me in every family reunion and she wanted to meet me. I made a little talk with her and then I went to talk with my aunts. The rest of the night, whenever I was talking to a member of my family, Lena would get into the conversation even if it was private. I assumed she was trying to fit in and include herself, so I included her in the conversations even though I found it uncomfortable. After that, she included herself all the time in any conversation I was having with anyone at any family gathering, but I would include her in the conversations. The problem started when they announced their engagement. They were going to announce it at a party, but before they announced it I had to leave the place urgently because Rita had fallen out of the bathtub. My brother understood the urgency and he took me to a room, just the two of us, to still tell me the news of his engagement before I leave. I congratulated and hugged him, but Lena ruined our moment because she complained, saying that the firstborn of the family, me, must be there, but I just ignored her and my brother explained her that I had to leave. I have been taking care of Rita since before I graduated and she always trusted in my skills as a nurse, and she's even paying for my second degree, which is a lot, so she became a third grandmother to me, and after falling in the bathroom she broke her hip and her health deteriorated greatly. It's just me and her pregnant great-grandchild who takes care of her. My mother also comes to the hospital to help me sometimes because Rita doesn't like to be touched by the hospital nurses. She hates when strangers touch her for some traumas from her childhood. A few months ago Lena went out with the women of the family to try on wedding dresses, and one of my cousins told me that Lena kept complaining because I didn't go with them. Rita was sick and I was taking care of her. Lena knew that. On my mother's birthday I invited her for a brunch. It was supposed to be a mother and daughter outing like we do every year, but Lena insisted on coming. My mother felt uncomfortable, but we included her in our brunch anyways. I can tell a lot of situations like that where Lena pushed herself too hard to get close to me even if I was always kind with her. She even had an argument with a cousin because of that. I reached my limit yesterday. Rita passed away 3 days ago, and not only am I really sad but also my parents and brother, since everyone knew her and she was a great woman. Rita wants us to bury her ashes in the cottage where she grew up. Rita's great-granddaughter surprised me with an arranged trip for the two of us to go and bury the ashes next week. I told my family that, and my mother said she wants to go too, but Lena got totally mad and started to complain, saying that we're going to a trip 2 days before the wedding. To be honest, I totally forgot about it and I don't feel with the energy to go. My mother explained that we will only go to bury the ashes and come back literally the night before the wedding day, and that everything is actually ready. Lena continued complaining and I snapped when she told me that I care more about an old lady who wasn't my family and that I should care a lot more about her since she'll be my real family, my brother's wife and my nieces and nephew's mother, and the dead woman wasn't even my blood. I told Lena that Rita was like family to me and that she's not even a friend to me, that she's not relevant in my life, and if it wasn't for my brother I wouldn't even try to get along with her. Maybe I was mean, but I was sad and angry. I left the place while Lena was trying to argue with me and she started to cry, saying that she only wanted to be family for me. I always wanted to make her feel included, but she crossed my boundaries and doesn't have empathy at all. She didn't even give me condolences when Rita passed away and kept talking about the wedding all day while I made calls to take care of the funeral. Now I'm thinking that I don't even want to go to the wedding. I love my brother and he even chose my bridesmaid dress, but I feel too bad to go, and I'm even thinking of cutting off contact with Lena because her behavior is too weird and dense. I'm just sad and I want to cry all day because I lost the woman I considered my guide for 5 years for her wisdom, and I feel guilty for not wanting to go to my brother's wedding and make him feel sad, but I just don't want to deal with Lena anymore because next time I see her I know I will surely fight with her if she makes another comment like that. Relevant comments. Comment 1. If Lena knew what having healthy relationships looked like and should have talked with OP privately on why OP wasn't invested into having family times OP. She already had an argument with one of my cousins who tried to explain to her that I have a busy life and I can't go out too often to my parents' house, but Lena just complained that I don't care about the family and started to talk ill about me to wish my cousin got angry with her. Also, my mother, who never liked physical contact, asked Lena to please not hug her so much, because it makes her uncomfortable. Not even her children hug her because she gets tense, but Lena just doesn't listen and keeps hugging her, making my mother feel anxious. We all have a lot of patience with her and we understand that she never had a family, but there comes a point when patience runs out. She doesn't even listen to my brother, and I can't live because of her. Her behavior not only distances her from me but also from the rest of the family, and we no longer find a way to set a limit and have her understand that there are things that make us feel uncomfortable. We're all really gentle with her. I was too gentle with her, but she just thinks about herself at this point. Comment 2. Is it possible that she has odd notions about what it means to be a good SIL? If she didn't have a family, it's possible she picked up ideas from fiction, and depending on the author, fictional relationships can be downright odd. Ask her if she thinks she's being polite by inserting herself into private conversations, trying to be part of every single thing, etc. She may be doing her damnedest to be good to you and is being damned for it. But also, she needs her framework of what is appropriate adjusted, by you setting boundaries of what makes for a good relationship. She might even welcome explicit descriptions of what a healthy relationship looks like. OP. I think she has a weird vision of what a family should be, although what confuses me is that while she tries to force a good relationship with me, she doesn't mind talking badly about me behind my back, so I don't really understand what she really wants. She always emphasizes that I'm the firstborn, so I should be in all the family stuff because it's my responsibility, and I have no idea where she got that idea or concept from. At first I thought that she wants a family like the ones in the movies, but her behavior becomes hostile to me behind my back, and I don't know if she does that to other family members as well, because the only person who tried to explain the boundaries in a serious way was my cousin, and they ended up having a strong argument because Lena is too stubborn, so I don't understand what she wants and I'm just tired. Update. First of all, I'm grateful to those who gave me good advice even though others left weird comments and hadn't even read the post before leaving a comment. I want to clarify again that I always tried to make Lena feel welcome and I always understood that she never had a family. But do I deserve to be treated without empathy? Why should I overflow with empathy for her when she never showed empathy for me? I'm grieving and can't even have peace right now because of her. I also got comments saying that I should treat her like a toddler, but that's just rude. She's a grown woman and should be treated like what she is. I think it would be insulting to treat her like a child. I talked to my parents about everything and also to my brothers. In the conversation I discovered things that Lena did and said that are even more weird. My mother said that Lena often makes comments like, "I'm more of a daughter to you than Op since she never visits you and I come all the time." Which makes my mother uncomfortable. She also said that she explained a lot of times to Lena that she doesn't like physical touch, not even us hug her because she gets anxious and tense, but Lena just keeps hugging her. My mother also said that Lena speaks very badly of me, and Lena even said that I cried more because of Rita's death than I did because of my real grandfather's death, which is something really shitty to say. My father said that a year ago Lena approached him just to say your second daughter, referring to herself, knows you better than your first daughter, haha, comparing the gifts we both gave him for Father's Day, and he just laughed it off, but he thought it was a weird comment to make. My father was the only one who always kinda disliked Lena, so now I know why. My younger brother also said that he heard many times how Lena complained about me not going to family gatherings, although she also complained about that in my face a few times. So it seems that we all shut down a lot of things because we wanted to understand her situation and make my brother happy. We live next to a poor neighborhood and we know a lot of other people in the same situation as Line, so we tried to make her feel included, but I don't understand her behavior to me at all. At this point I was crying most of all because I just don't want to deal with this after Rita's death, and I felt bad for my brother. My brother hugged me and said he's sorry and started to tear up, saying that it's difficult for him to deal with Lena's behavior too. He told me that Lena was always making hateful comments towards Rita. She never met Rita and all of us in the family are sad about her departure because she was a great woman, the kindest woman who ever lived, so it's really sick that she hates an old woman who's dead. And every time my brother tried to explain to her that Rita was important to us, she just gave him a cold shoulder and didn't talk to him for the rest of the day, but he's trying really hard to help her, because she always wanted a family. I told him that we want to be her family, but we need to set boundaries because those comments hurts. My father told him that this is just pushing her away from everyone and he doesn't want someone talking ill about his daughter. My brother looked really tired. He actually looks really tired every day since a few months ago, but I want to think it's because of the wedding. I didn't told him that I was thinking in cutting contact with Lena because I didn't want it at all to make him feel like he have to choose between her or me. Instead, I told him that we need to set hard boundaries with her so that in the future we can have a healthy coexistence, and she can heal her mind because we have been too gentle so far, but the situation is already at its limit. I didn't talk with Lena at all, so I suppose my brother talked with her really seriously. The wedding is still ongoing and I will go just to show my support to my brother, but at this point I just feel that he's making a wrong decision because, honestly, I don't think Lena's is a mentally unstable person. Actually, she's not even a good person in my eyes anymore, but I don't want to say something and be the jealous big sister who ruins his brother relationship, so I will just stay in silence, letting everything flow. I just want to go on the trip and have some mental peace until the wedding day comes. I don't feel mentally well enough to argue right now or to feel even more guilty because of how I'm dealing with all of this. I just want to bury Rita's ashes with her great-granddaughter and my mother. Sorry for the really bad English. I write almost everything from the translator. Edit. Yes, we tried to put boundaries a lot of times. It's not like we will hit her or be aggressive so she could understand, but I'll admit we've all been too soft and understanding of her out of pity. Lena just doesn't want to understand. Listen to others' complaints even when someone talks seriously, and the incident she had with me and my cousin only showed that when someone talks to her seriously she becomes the victim or gets madly angry. Even what my brother said made it clear to us that she's just maybe never going to respect boundaries, so it's better for me to just stop trying and just cut contact with her at least for this and next week until I feel better and ready to talk about this again. Mini update. My brother already knows everything that Lena did. Like I said in the post, he's also tired of her behavior, but we can't do anything about their relationship if he wants to stay. My father had a conversation with him a few hours ago to tell him that we're worried and if he wants to thinking better about the wedding, but my brother said that he's fine, only tired and will continue with the wedding. So yeah, we can't do anything but show my brother that we're with him and try to help him to open his eyes, but people have to understand that we can't help him in an aggressive way saying that Lena is a B*teach or kicking her out of the family, because that will only benefit her as she can take that opportunity to manipulate my brother by making herself the victim again. Dealing with a person full of traumas and childhood problems is not easy at all. She does not know what basic limits are, and now that she knows them she does not want to respect them, but we can't be aggressive with her because she's not a mentally well person. Don't blame my brother if you don't understand what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. He's not to blame for anything and he's just a victim. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Why is he still getting married to this woman considering this is how she treats his family? Just make sure to support your brother if he ever becomes sane enough to get a divorce. OP. For what he said, she also treats him badly, so I don't understand either. Maybe he's still too in love, but the only thing I can do is show him my support. For now I just don't want to talk with Lena at all because I'm not in feeling well mentally. Comment 2. I do think your family might want to gently let him know that they're worried about how he's being treated. He might tell Lena and then they'll shoot the messenger though. OP, we did it. My mom asked him if it's a toxic relationship and he just kept quiet and said he just wants to help Lena. He has the same behavior that friends of mine have had when they had toxic partners, and I really know that when people are in abusive relationships, they are usually blinded by love and they don't want to believe reality. I feel fool for not noticing that behavior before, but I wasn't around the family too much lately. Comment 3. I don't understand why your family doesn't tell Lena that her negative comments are not welcome. Your family needs to defend you and Rita and stress they do not tolerate disparaging comments. If she has nothing nice to say, there is the door. Bye-bye. Your brother should really postpone the wedding and seek couple counseling. Lena's behavior needs to be adjusted before she can be part of your family. Right now nobody likes her. OP, like I said, we all had too much patience with her because of her hard childhood, and we understand that a childhood like she had messed with your head, but I didn't knew she was this messed. We told her that those comments are wrong many times, even my brother, but she is not a person with whom you can really talk seriously because she does not listen or gets angry. She has fought strongly with one of my cousins who wanted to put clear limits on her behavior. Our mistake was to not set hard boundaries on her out of pure pity. Even I have let pass many of her comments just because I feel pity for her or because I don't want to hurt my brother. The same reason why my mother tries to not get angry when Lena hugs her. Comment 4. OP, your family has played nice for the sake of your brother. I get that. But I think it has gotten to the point that you're doing him a disservice. He's going to end up married to this very mentally unwell woman, and his family has just pretended that she's great all along, so he never saw any previous signs that things weren't as great from an outside perspective. And you all still continue to pretend. It's not okay. I don't keep pretending that everything is fine. We all talk to my brother that Lena's behavior has to stop. The only thing I didn't tell him is that I plan to cut off contact with Lena to not make him feel pressured or feel like I'm manipulating him. He knows about her behavior, and like I said in the 2 posts, he always tried to correct that behavior and is also tired of that, but I can't do anything if he doesn't want to open his eyes now that he knows everything Lena did. It's clear that he knows her behavior is wrong, even towards him, but I can't force him to leave her if he doesn't want to see reality. It's not easy to leave an abusive relationship even if all the signs are there. Update 2. I think it's been a while since I last posted and I was feeling too stressed and didn't even log back into this account, as honestly the comments only managed to stress me out even more, but there are people who keep asking me for an update and worried about all of this mess. Also, sometimes I need to just vent. First of all, I want to make it clear that my brother is an adult. We can advise him, but the final decision is made by him. In my first post I didn't know anything about what I said in my second post. Please understand that it was a time of stress and anxiety for me to discover all those things that obviously change the perspective you have of someone, and I was in a difficult moment. That being said, the wedding did happen. After another intervention, my father made it clear to my brother that he does not approve the marriage. My father didn't attend the wedding, and since that day my brother doesn't speak to anyone in the family except my mother, but my mother doesn't want Lena in her house, so it's complicated too. We all gave my brother the reason why getting married with Lena is a bad idea, but he chose to do it anyway. But he's my brother, and I know at some point he'll open his eyes, and he knows he can come to me anytime he needs. For people who will say, but you should have done X or you should have done and, your family should stop being doormats and kick Lena out of the house from the start. Honestly? Shut up. I think it wasn't enough to clarify that I had my own problems. Everyone in my family has our own problems and lives. We're just trying to be kind and continue the family peace with a person who had a complicated life. My family has always been very healthy, so the least we would believe is that someone my brother is dating has bad intentions. When you grow up in a healthy environment, it is difficult and shocking to deal with problematic people in the family, and it's even more difficult to do something that you know is going to bring serious problems. I personally didn't even see Lena so many times to know all of those weird situations I said in my second post. I can't take charge of a life that isn't mine, and I can't take responsibility for my brother's life or Lena's problems. To reassure everyone, Lena doesn't think about me stealing my identity or anything like that. She's weird but not dangerous, although what my father told me is strange anyway. My brother confessed to my father that Lena feels like my relationship with my brother is weird and she feels jealous of me because I'm his favorite person. My brother and I usually lie in the same bed to watch TV, play video games, and he usually hugs me, but it's something I do even with my other brother, but she thinks that's weird. I don't think that's weird at all, and I know many people who is close with their siblings in that way. My brother confessed that he and Lena tend to have a lot of arguments about it, another thing he hid, since Lena gets jealous when he spends time alone with me, but that Lena doesn't understand how siblings treat each other, but at the same time she also wants to be close to me. According to my brother, she wants to be very close to me, and that's why she doesn't know what comments to make near me and my family. I don't believe him. My father argued with him about it and he expressed to my brother that he doesn't plan to go to the wedding. I didn't go either and just decided to stay more days away grieving for Rita, so I don't know how it went because my mother avoided the wedding topic. I didn't ask and I have been living in Rita's house for now. Sorry if this is not the update people wanted, but yeah, that's it. I'm sorry if anyone expected me to say something like that. Lena is now in jail for impersonating me, or that Lena is actually my long-lost twin sister. The reality is as depressing and simple as everyone predicted of Lena getting my brother mad at all of us and cutting off contact. At this point, and now that my mind is calmer, I will just choose to let my brother do his life. I can't put energy on this, and my mother told me to just let him be, and we did everything we could. He's an adult. I don't understand what Luna wants. I don't understand if she hates me or if she likes me or if she wants to be me. I understand that my brother is in a toxic relationship, but still I can't help but feel hurt. We talked to my brother trying to convince him not to get married, but at the end of the day he made his decision. He even confessed many other things about Lena that he lied about and had hidden from us, so for now I know he's just going to try to protect her all the time. I even talked to Lena before they got married, but it was an argument that went nowhere and only made my brother mad at me for confronting her, but I knew that's what was going to happen the moment I put limits to Lena. The same thing happened to my father and my other brother. You just can't explain the boundaries to her because she doesn't respect them or gets offended. At this point my mother only has little contact with Lena so that she can continue to have contact with my brother as well. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Hugs. You have to look out for yourself and hope your brother knows what he is doing. Lena has issues, but now, you don't have to deal with her. Your brother may feel differently in a few months, once he is basically cut off from the family. More drama ahead, when she has the first grandchild. Lena is a very insecure pick-me person. OP, my brother can't have biological children and he doesn't want to adopt either because it's really difficult in my country. I doubt very much that they will have children, but I don't know. Comment 2. I remember your first 2 posts. I wonder if Lena has anxious attachment disorder. What is her relationship with her parents and siblings? It seems she wants to be the center of your brother and mother's world. Anything that gets in the way of that is upsetting to her. OP, more than being my mother's center of attention, I think she wants to be just my brother's center of attention. She wants to be my brother's favorite person by being my parents' daughter and his sister, if that makes any sense. I don't know, that's what I deduced from her behavior and what my brother said. She has no relationship with her family because they are addicts.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My mill tampered with my birth control, resulting in me getting pregnant 3 months postpartum. Not really sure what to do from here. Let me just start out by saying, if you know who I am, please don't say anything. I created a throwaway to vent and cry and get support as anonymously as possible. I'm still very happy about the pregnancy, or at least wanna be. I just need support. Thanks for understanding. My husband, 22M, and I, 20F, welcomed our daughter into the world 18 weeks ago. She's a darling baby and really pretty easy as far as newborns go, except for one. She wasn't a son. My ILs were obsessed with the idea of us having a son, to the point that they denied she was a girl up until the moment she was born. Why? Because the bloodline follows the father. If you don't have a son, our family name will die out, because your daughter will marry a man and carry on his bloodline. So girls don't really count. The day they came to visit in the hospital, my ILs asked when we would be trying for another baby. We kind of just laughed it off, but my mill got more insistent, straight up telling us, y'all need to try for a boy. Over the next month or 2, the conversation about us having another baby sort of tapers off into little comments every now and again. I had no problem ignoring them, and we'd already told them it wasn't happening, so I'd just let it run off my back. Around this time, MIL started coming over daily for a few hours, watching the baby for me so that I could sleep and also occasionally clean up a bit for me. She'd be over unsupervised anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. Fast forward to the present day. 2 days ago, my husband poured me a mixed drink, and when I brought the cup up to my lips, I got hit with this paranoid and panicked feeling. I immediately put the cup down and insisted we take a pregnancy test. Sure enough, it comes back positive. We wait until the next morning, take a digital test, and again, positive. Based on LMP, I should have been about 6 weeks along. After getting over the initial shock, we were excited but confused. For several reasons, we hadn't been able to get hormonal birth control, so we'd been using condoms and lube to make sure they didn't tear. So we weren't sure how we'd gotten pregnant, but we're happy with the news. We decided we wouldn't tell anyone because we didn't want another baby stampede from his family, but I'm incredibly close with my sil, so I decided to tell her after swearing her to secrecy. When I told her, her eyes got wide and started to water, and she asked if I was serious, and was I sure. I told her I know my husband and I are young, but between us we make more than enough to support another baby. Sael bursts into tears and starts to apologize over and over. Meanwhile, I sit there with my mouth hanging open and lost. She calms down a bit, and through her tears tell me that my MIL has been poking holes in our condoms pretty much since we came home from the hospital. She claims MIL told her she did it, but she thought that she was just spouting shit because she was upset we didn't have a boy. And suddenly everything clicked into place. That's why the condoms didn't work even though we were careful with them. That's why she'd always shoo me off to sleep while she was around. And that's what she was doing when she was cleaning my house, snooping for our condoms. And she knew I wasn't on birth control because I remember complaining to her about how my OB went on maternity leave and I wasn't able to find another one that took my insurance at the time. I'm so angry I don't know what to do. I want to go right over to her house and tear her a new one so bad I can smell my tires burning in the blacktop. I'm also illogically angry at SIL for not telling me. How could you think this was a joke when she was so specific about everything she was going to do? Why didn't you warn me? I would have put my condoms in my room. I'm livid with MIL. I'm pleased with this pregnancy, but it wasn't my choice. It wasn't even an accident, it was her meddling because she didn't get the golden grandson she wanted. I don't even know how to handle this. I want to scorch the earth, but I also still don't want his family knowing I'm pregnant. And I'm not even 12 weeks yet, so the risk of a miscarriage is still uncomfortably high. The only bright side of this whole thing is it snatched my husband out of his mother's FOG so violently he's probably got whiplash. Personally, my pregnancy has soured a bit, so I'm really trying to hang on to any happiness I have about the pregnancy left. If you have Irish twins of your own or are one, I'd love some positive feedback on that situation. Where do we go from here? ETA update. First, let me clarify. I am 20 years old, not 18. I'm 18 weeks postpartum, not 12. 12 is when I would have conceived given that I'm 6 weeks along based on LMP. Second, I don't give a shit if you think this is fake, I honestly wish that it were. If you don't have advice to give, I kindly ask that you take your judgment elsewhere. Now that that's out the way, here's the update. I want to thank you all for your support and suggestions. Having a plan makes me feel way less panicked and overwhelmed. Sadly, what Mill did isn't a crime here, so there won't be any jail time or charges pressed. For now, the game plan is NC with Mill for me, babe, or growing babe once the truth is out. Before then, I want all the proof in the world she did this. I've ordered a hidden camera, and I'm going to buy new, latex-free condoms claiming that I'm suddenly allergic to latex. Hopefully she'll poke holes again and I'll have video proof this time. Even if I can't use it to press charges, I want all the proof I have that she's not safe to be around so she can't sue for GPR if this baby is a boy. I also have decided to change our family last name to literally anything else BC. I'm a petty bitch, and since she wants to act an ass over this stupid name, then nobody gets it. As for my husband, he's willing and ready to do whatever I decide. Currently he's asleep, so we'll be discussing everything at breakfast. Thanks again everyone. Spot on comments. Comment 1. If it is a little girl, I hope they name it after OP's mother or grandmother or another influential woman in her life. If it's a boy, I like the idea of giving him his mother's surname for a last name, or something similar. I also don't think Mill should ever see any child that OP and her husband have ever again. Comment 2. I think you have solid grounds to go to the police and see what can be done. Maybe your state, if in the US, has reproductive coercion laws. She's fully admitted that she poked holes in the condoms, and you probably have the condoms with holes in them as I'm typing this. I don't know how you ever get back to normal after this. If you forgive and forget, you're basically telling her she can invade you and nothing will be done in the form of a consequence. I don't advocate for NC unless it's seriously bad. I advocate here because you'll be seeing red every time you hear her speak. Go to therapy so you can properly accept the pregnancy and separate the anger for MIL and your sweet babe. I wish you the best. Comment 3. This is reproductive coercion and it is assault. She never sees either of your children again. At the very least, she never has unsupervised access to your children or you. If Hubs isn't literally in the room, she can't be there. If she does, if you let her get away with this and sweep it under the rug, she will feel entitled to brag for the rest of her life about how she is the reason you have LO2 and how that's her baby, and she's so proud of this completely sick thing she has done to you. She may do it again, she may do it to sell. This is not a person you can ever trust again. LO1 will always hear about how she wasn't good enough because she was a girl, so Mill did this to you and now you have LO2, and isn't that so wonderful? Your daughter is going to need to be protected from internalizing that she is inadequate, or that reproductive coercion is an okay thing to do. Comment 4. If I were you, I would talk to your local police department and/or a lawyer to talk about legal options. If a couple agreed to use condoms as birth control and one person decided to poke holes in the condoms without telling the other, so changing the terms of the agreement without informing their partner, that probably would be considered some form of sexual assault or fraud at the very least. It should be no different for your Mill. If you have any condoms left in your house, inspect them for damage and save them as evidence. I would also never let her around my kids ever again. She is taking manipulation to get what she wants to the extreme. That's not someone I would want influencing my kids. Comment 5. So either you call the police and do anything and everything you can to destroy this nutjob's credibility and peace of mind. Tell everyone on Facebook, her church, put up her picture with a warning this crazy woman tampers with condoms where she shops. Or I'll just wait for the update where she plants drugs or something to get you deemed an unfit parent to get you out of the way to her kid. Make no mistake, that is how she thinks. This might sound harsh, but honestly, if you don't both call the police and never let her near your family again, I would have to say you are not fit to parent. Do you want a power-hungry lunatic having control over your kids? Because she will never accept anything less than the level of control she wants. If you let her in, she will not give up. She doesn't even think of you as a human being. You are cattle to her. Comment 6. Not much to say that hasn't already been said. Gonna repeat many comments. Good luck with both kids. Speak with your husband about the options with the in-laws. My family had issues in-laws too. Mom's parents talked and joked about beating their religion into us kids, and Dad's sister tried to kill her own kids. My family did supervised visits in public, active parks, restaurants, church, with the all-in-laws, whole family, until us kids were over 18, or relatives proved to parents' trustworthiness and equality. So you have that choice if husband wants to stay in contact with Illifer, change locks, get a door camera, intercept all presents. If it is a boy, raise him with the idea he can take his wife's last name or your daughter can keep hers and husband takes hers. Adopted sister and her fiancé are taking her birth last name. If you keep having problems, trust issues, you can go to a counselor. Most churches/temples/community centers have or know great people to talk to for free or cost. My closest brother is 12 months to the day younger and we were joined at the hip until high school. Shared a room till middle school. Learning things was easier with someone else learning at the same time. I always had my playmate, and we helped each other instead of asking other siblings or parents for help. Comment 7. So, funny thing. You don't have to name your children with your family name. You can name them whatever you want. You could give them a singular name like Cher or Sting. Or to be more subtle, with a great big fuck you. You could give your child the family name of your own parents. When they become obstinate about it, you could inform them that because Mill messed with your health and safety, you have decided as a family that they will not be part of the naming convention. I am curious. It seems your husband supports your decisions regarding planning your future, but I don't see any commentary on how he is handling his parents. Personally, if my parents treated my wife that way, they would have just lost their grandparent visitation privileges. And they wouldn't get them back until they apologized and my wife agreed that they deserved them back. Even still, I would have a mandatory 1-year minimum ban. What if you had been on birth control? Would she have just switched your pills for Tylenol? Because mixing Tylenol and alcohol causes permanent liver damage. Maybe she switched to aspirin. Maybe you're on an anticoagulant after the pregnancy because of a developed clotting disorder. Congratulations, she just killed you. If you got a restraining order against your MIL for you and your kids, it would not be too far. Comment 8. Once you've calmed down, you and your husband need to inform her that what she did was a huge breach of trust and that because of her actions she will never have a relationship with her grandchildren. She can't be trusted, and no matter what craziness she spews, this is worth burning a bridge over. Her actions deserve scorched earth consequences. Don't let her threaten you with grandparents' rights because those usually only proc if their child has died, plus they have to establish a relationship with the child prior to filing, which as of now they have zero relationship with your next child. Excluding certain states with crazy GP rights, I think NY is one. Kindly tell her to pound sand and that she isn't allowed anywhere near you, your home, or your children, and that any attempt to contact, harass or threaten you will be met with a police call and possibly a restraining order. Don't answer phone calls, don't let her in the door, and do not ever stand and take her words, always turn and walk away. Now to the next story. Story 2. My fiancé doesn't want to invite his Sil to our wedding because she has feelings for him, when it's more the other way around. My fiancé, Will, has a younger brother Charlie and he is married to Evie. Evie is a beautiful woman both inside and out. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met and is an amazing and supportive friend. Perhaps the best friend I've ever had. Will, Charlie and Evie went to school together. Charlie and Evie have been together for 20 years, they married pretty much straight out of high school. During their time at school, Will and Evie went on one date before she started dating Charlie. Will had been hounding her for a date and she eventually said yes to try and make Charlie jealous as she liked him but didn't think he felt the same way. Yes, completely aware this is ridiculous, but Evie was 13 at the time. Evie told me about this date pretty early on. She had wanted me to know in case I thought she had feelings for Will. She made it very clear that she's never had romantic feelings for Will and that she just used him for that one date to make Charlie jealous. I do know that Will had feelings for Evie, and from what he's said that he's stopped having them since we've been together. Will and I are currently in the process of planning our wedding for next summer. We've been putting together a list of who we want to ask to be a part of the wedding party and who we want to invite to the wedding. I want to have Evie as one of my bridesmaids because I know she will be supportive and reliable. Will frowned and told me that he wasn't planning on Evie being part of the wedding. I asked if he had a falling out with Charlie and wasn't inviting him either, as they're a package deal as a married couple. Plus there is no way one would attend without the other. He replied that he hadn't fallen out with his brother, but he couldn't see himself getting married with Evie there, as according to him she still has feelings for him and he wouldn't want her to ruin our day. I know for a fact that she doesn't. I asked him if she had confessed feelings or something. He said no, but it's the way she is with him. He gave examples like how she's always around our house. Evie and I run together 3 times a week. As I live closer to her work, she comes to ours to change instead of going home. How she'll make his favorite dessert when we celebrate Christmas at theirs. His birthday is Christmas Eve. How she does little thoughtful things like dropping off baked goods for us, or how she takes an interest in things he is interested in. The 3 of them support the same football team. To me, none of this is Evie showing she has romantic feelings for him. She's just being a good friend. I told him this, but he is insistent on not inviting Evie to the wedding. I know that if Evie isn't invited, Charlie won't attend and it will snowball further as the family are really close, but it will look like I'm the one causing this. I reached out to Evie after the conversation with Will, and I asked her to be honest with me if she had any sort of romantic feelings for Will. At first Evie laughed at the idea of her having any sort of feelings for Will. She then admitted that until I met Will he had made her uncomfortable, but it had lessened since we got together 2 years ago. She explained that Will would make comments about how they were more suited than her and Charlie. He used to send her drunk messages about how they belonged together. She told me that Charlie knew about the messages and they had pulled themselves away from Will during that period but only allowed him back in when I started dating him. I asked her if he had sent her anything like that since we'd been together. Evie went quiet on the phone before saying that he had sent her a message at the weekend when Will, Charlie and some of their friends had gone out drinking. She had cancelled on running this week, but hadn't given me a reason, and it turns out that she is avoiding Will. Charlie also hasn't been talking to his brother since the night out because of the message. She sent me the message and it was very explicit. He told her that he wished he was the father of her child. Evie's pregnant with their 4th child, and not Charlie, and how he'd be a better dad than Charlie could ever be. I'm not sure what to do. I love Will and he is convinced that Evie has feelings for him when she's made it clear that she does not. I thought Will had moved on, but he's now sending Evie messages. Is there anything I can do, or is the relationship just doomed? TLDR. Fiancé doesn't want his SIL to be invited to the wedding, saying it's because she has feelings for him. Turns out he has feelings for her and has started sending her messages again, saying that he loves her and they belong together. Edit. Not that it makes anything better. Will was 15 when they had the date. Evie is 6 months younger than her husband. She's 34 next month. I've told Will that we need to talk when he comes back from taking his mum to an appointment this morning. It's nothing serious, just taking her to get new glasses, but she needs the help as she's got mobility issues. I think he knows I want to talk about Evie, as he asked if it was about Evie and the wedding. I said yes and he sighed before telling me we would discuss it when he comes back. I'm gonna put together a weekend back so I can leave quickly if needed. I've texted Evie and Charlie to tell them I'm going to talk to Will about his behavior because it needs to change and he needs to realize that nothing will ever happen with Evie. Charlie responded wishing me luck and has said their house is open to me if I need it. He also apologized for me having to go through this, as they shouldn't have stuck their heads in the sand about this hoping it would go away. I know I should have brought this up after she told me, but I'm very non-confrontational and will try and avoid an argument if I can. Update. Will and I had a talk when he came back. I told him that I knew about the text he had sent Evie at the weekend. He denied it straight away, telling me she was a fantasist, but quickly changed his tune once I started reading him the text. He then started to apologize and claimed it was just a moment of weakness after Charlie had been showing the group pictures from their family holiday last month. One of them had made a comment about Evie being out of Charlie's league, which reminded Will that he had lost his chance with Evie all those years ago. He then sent her the text. I asked him how he would feel if it had been Charlie harassing his partner, and he just lowered his head and said he would be upset, but that Charlie didn't deserve Evie. I told him that Evie wasn't an object to be given to whoever is deemed worthy of her, and that she chose Charlie, and that should have been enough for him. The fact there is someone out there who loves Charlie for who he is and makes his brother happy should be enough. Will told me that he was jealous of Charlie as he has everything he wanted, and it wasn't fair because he's the eldest. Charlie did better than Will in school. He was better at sports. Charlie is more successful as he was able to do what he wanted. Will feels he had to do what his parents expected while Charlie could go to uni for whatever he wanted. Seeing Evie with Charlie is a reminder that Charlie has everything he wants. I asked Will if Evie was single and interested in him, would he leave me? Will refused to answer the question, but it was all I needed to hear. I told Will that I was going to stay elsewhere for a couple days while I figure out where I will go because we are over. I don't want to stay living with someone who doesn't care about me. When I went to go and get the bag I packed, Will asked me if he could have the ring back as it is a family heirloom. It belonged to his gran and was intended for whoever got married first, but when Charlie asked for it, Will apparently threw a massive tantrum over it, saying that it should be his as he is the eldest, so their mum said Charlie couldn't have it. I told him no, it was going to the person who it was meant to go to, Evie. I'm now at Charlie and Evie's for a couple days while I figure out getting a new place to stay or if I will move closer to my family. I work for myself, so that makes things easier. Charlie and Evie have decided they will be going LC with Will. They'd go NC, but it will cause drama with the family and neither want that, especially Evie. Will called Charlie asking if I was with them, but Charlie told Will that he had no idea where I was. Charlie then proceeds to tell Will that they are going LC with him because of the way Will has been towards Evie and that he is now doing what he should have done years ago in protecting Evie. Evie has apologized several times as she feels she's the reason my relationship has ended, but I have reassured her that the only person at fault here is Will, and I do not blame her for anything. If anything, she is a victim in all of this too. I've given her the ring, but she has said that I should give it back to Mil as she doesn't want it. I wish I had seen Will's behavior before it got this far, but I was blinded by love. Looking back, I can see there were red flags that I just decided to ignore. Spot on comment. Comment 1. Your fiancé is obsessed over another woman to the point he outright told her he wished he was the father of her children, and you don't want to say anything because it may start a fight. OP, you're his placeholder. If Evie did not have a husband or they divorced, he would go for her. This relationship is doomed. Comment 2. Why would you marry someone who is in love with someone else? You are the backup plan. If he ever sees that he has a chance with his SIL, he will drop you faster than a hot-baked potato. Do you really want this man to be father to your children when he would rather Evie be the mother? Comment 3. Girl, you have two choices, each have consequences. Just know from now on whatever happens it's on you. He's going to lie and say it's not true and he loves you, but you know and we all know you're a placeholder. Option 1. You marry him knowing he loves someone else. You resent him and resent Evie because she has something you don't have that he likes. He would leave you in a heartbeat if he had a chance with Evie. You could even have good years with him and get pregnant, but know that he would leave you at any point for Evie. Option 2. You leave him and put yourself first. And later in life you are grateful you didn't settle for him in second choice. Either way, your future is yours. You can't blame him in 10 or 15 years why he doesn't love you because you knowingly chose to get married with him, or you can make the hard choice and pick yourself. Comment 4. Please don't marry him. You deserve to be the first choice. You're not with him. That text message is a huge sign to leave him. I'm so sorry, but I really don't think you can come back from this. He's living a fantasy, a lie, and you deserve so much better. Please sit down with him and ask him to explain that text. For me, I'd be out, but if you're determined to make this work, he needs therapy and you should distance yourself from Evie and Charles to see if that helps. But really, I would break up. You have not built a strong foundation for this relationship, let alone a marriage. And if anything ever happened between Charles and Evie, he would want to make a move, even if Evie doesn't want him. I'd hang on to those two as friends and say goodbye to Will. Big hugs. Comment 5. You just found out you are getting set to marry a stalker who is focused very disturbingly on his own SIL. And you think this can be fixed? No. It can't. You're being used. Your fiancé wants you in the picture because it brought his brother and the SIL back. You are his "I'm a nice safe guy" costume. Your fiancé is a creep. His family is deluding themselves if any of them think you marrying him will fix the problem of him creeping on SIL. Run. Comment 6. Your fiancé is a 16-year-old pressured a 13-year-old to go on a date with him. Are 13-year-olds even allowed to date? Did he drive a 7th grader to a restaurant? And has been harassing her for years. I honestly can't believe Charlie and Evie haven't cut him off. I feel awful for her that she's had to put up with him trying to manipulate her into leaving her husband and father of her children for him. Now he wants to punish her for not reciprocating his advances by excluding her from your wedding, knowing how much it will hurt when she's so close with you. He doesn't love you. You're a placeholder because he can't have Evie. I'm sorry that sounds harsh, but it's the truth that can be seen plain as day from outside the situation. If Evie told him she wanted to leave Charlie for him, he'd drop you in a heartbeat. I would call off the wedding and be so glad Evie told you all this before the breakup became a divorce. Your husband is a creep.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.